Morning, everybody, and welcome to Hometown Cable. Our program every Sunday is called What's Going On Here? My name is Bob Venn. Calvin Castine has the camera, and we welcome you to our Sunday show. About 2 to 3 weeks ago, I got a telephone call from David Martin. You remember David? He did a show with us on the history of Shazy book, and always very interesting person to talk to, and we did a show with him on his trip to China. Well, he suggested we come down to the museum in Plattsburgh, the Historical Society, and talk about an award called the McMasters Award. It's given for people who write books from the area, write stories, etc. And Dave is not here this morning, but a lady by the name of Mrs.
Margaret Engelhardt.
All right. She's going to talk to us about, who is Margaret Engelhardt?
Margaret Engelhardt has lived in Plattsburgh 45 years. And I have done a variety of things. I've raised 9 children. I have taught university here and also at the University of Minnesota. I have been an editor for Tundra Books of Northern New York for many years, though I am retired from that position, yes. I'm retired altogether.
Tundra Books out of Montreal?
Tundra Books out of Montreal.
That's one place that I met you.
And northern New York. Is that right?
That one. What was the lady's name at Tundra Books?
May Cutler.
May Cutler. I worked at Customs. She came down and saw me a couple of times.
Oh, yes.
I may have met you
yes.
Over the years.
Tundra Books no longer exists as such. It now has been bought by Stuart McClellan and Stewart, and will continue the name in children's books.
Okay.
So that history will go on.
You mentioned way back 9 children.
Yes.
Now, you weren't a mammy someplace. You have 9 children of your own?
Neither Catholic nor careless.
Yes?
Now, we had 4 children, biological children, and we were the caretakers for 5 children whose parents were killed in an automobile accident.
I remember that situation. Didn't you have an agreement between the two of you
Yes, we did.
on a reciprocal deal?
Yeah.
And because of when they were both killed in an accident in Canada, I believe?
Yes, that's right.
And he was also a professor at the
Yes,
college.
George Yoakum. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then because of that, you had to buy a new home, making room for at least 9 children?
That's right.
I remember the situation way back.
You do.
I
You've
certainly
been around
do.
a long while, too.
I've been along, yes, and I read that type of thing. I find that very interesting. As a result of that, I made an agreement with my sister, because what happens when 2 are killed in one accident, and there's nothing for the children?
And shortly after that accident, another family in Elizabethtown or Lewis had an accident. The parents had an accident and left several children.
And their kids were split up.
I don't know what happened.
Also a couple in Moores, and that's where I got very worried, because the state said, well, your mother is too old to take care of them, the grandmothers, so they're going to put one in Ellenburg and one in West Shazy, which should not happen.
No, in this case, it didn't happen, and that was a good thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
So tell me now, you say you've been here 45, where were you from originally?
Flint, Michigan.
Oh, you mentioned that, there's some Venns in Flint, Michigan.
There are some Venns in Flint, Michigan. He was the mayor of Flint. A Venn was a mayor of Flint in the 30s or early 40s, I would say.
Okay, I assume you are a member of the Historical Association.
Absolutely,
here.
And have been for a long
For many
while,
years.
yes.
What is the McMasters Award? Isn't it? That's what we're here for today.
Let me tell you a little something about Emily McMasters. Emily McMasters came from a family that had been in this area for at least 3 generations, and it was a family that was always interested in the history of Clinton County and in Plattsburgh, New York. And Miss McMasters died, I think, about 1972 or 3. And when she died, she left a legacy to the Clinton County Historical Society so that a prize could be given to good writing about historical themes in the Tri-County area. It's not just Clinton County, it's Clinton, Franklin, and Essex counties. And that, and since the first prize was given in 1976.
20 years ago?
More than 20 years ago, yes. And I've been on the committee ever since it began. We started out in about planning in '74, and I was on the committee at that time and have been ever since, except for a couple of times when my husband and I were on sabbatic leave, once in England and once in China. And actually, it wasn't sabbatic leave in China. He had already retired, but we did teach in China for a year.
He was also at the college here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. He was professor of English
Okay.
and American literature.
Did you ever sit down with Dave Martin and compare Chinese notes? Huh?
And English notes. I mean, Dave Dave went shortly after we did, actually, and Dave and his wife and we have known each other a very long time. Yes, right.
When you talk about the McMasters Award, what kind of a writing does it have to be? It has to be a book?
No. There's a minimum of 3,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that anything shorter than that does not give enough scope to a topic, to research.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a minimum of 3,000 words. It must be literate. It must be well written. It must have been researched. The research should show in footnotes and in bibliography. It would be like a paper in maybe in a upper level college course or a graduate school course in its need to be well written and well researched.
Okay.
It could be a piece of fiction, and it has been a couple of times. We had a wonderful thing done on the air base, what the air base used to be in World War I. You know, the
26th Infantry.
The 26th Infantry, and the place where, what were they called? Not 90 day wonders, but there was the Plattsburgh idea, I think it was called. The Plattsburgh idea, and this is where men were trained as officers quickly. After all, we were only in that war about a year and a half. So there was a miracle going on here in Plattsburgh, and it was about a few young men who came here as youngsters, 18, 19, and 20, and were trained, and what they did in Plattsburgh and how, and it was very, very nicely done, but it was a piece of fiction, very well researched, and it won the prize that year.
It did. Okay, we'll be right back. We're talking with Margaret Engelhardt. We're talking about the McMasters Awards, and we're at the beautiful Clinton County Historical Association building at 48 Court Street in Plattsburgh, New York. Please stay with us. We'll be back.
You should.
Just a minute. We're back on, and
right.
we're talking about the McMasters. You were going to tell me something off camera. Tell me now. It's all right.
Well, you were interested in who has won the prizes, the many prizes. Now, sometimes we don't give a prize because we do not have a paper that we think is worthy of good historical writing.
So it's not just the best one that year. It's got to have to be.
It's got to be high in its value, according to our standards. Now, do you want to know who else is on this committee?
Yes, I do.
Me?
That was what I wanted to ask you. Yes,
right,
yes,
okay.
way back.
Well, we've had a number of people from around the county. In the early days, there was Norbert Walter, who was at the Press Republican, and we've kind of kept that tradition of having someone from the Press Republican, and now, of course, it's Jim Denko.
Okay.
But Jack Ross, you knew Jack Ross. Jack
yes.
Ross was on this committee
He
for
was,
years.
yes.
And Peg Byrne has been on it at one
That
time.
B-R-Y-N-E?
Yes.
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 And the old M.P. Meyer
That's right.
family, yes.
That's right. And of course, Alan Everest for centuries
He talked with us.
was our guiding light, and And David Martin now has been with us for quite a long while. And our newest member, replacing Alan Everest, is Dr. Jack Myers, also a historian from the college.
Okay.
So we've tried to have people from various parts of the county, and of course people interested in history and in good writing.
Okay. Now, Jack Ross, of course, was the historian in the town of Champlain in the village of Rouse's Point, worked for U.S. Customs with me, a 50-year fireman, and wrote an awful lot about about Fort Montgomery, and just a good historian all around. And Alan Everest, Dr. Alan Everest, and a great talker. Yeah, he would let you leave, but he told you how to get to the other places in the area, and never missed an opportunity to say something. The other person, Dr. Alan Everest, we talked to, if you remember. He wrote the book on Point of Fair. He wrote the book on, I forgot. Plenty More. And all the Pioneer Homes of the North Country and many others.
Which 17. Was published by Tundra Books of Northern New York and Montreal.
Okay, is it that long ago?
And Rum Across the Border.
And Rum Across, oh, let's not forget, oh yeah, no. And many more, right?
Yeah, he's been very prolific and valuable to this area.
How many on your committee?
There's 4 of us.
There's 4.
So it's
with 4, how do you break a tie?
We have to do what we have to do in government. We have to come together in some kind of way, the way we hope the Democrats and Republicans are going to iron out some of these problems in the next 4 years, right?
Yes. How many applications do you get, say, in a given year?
Sometimes we'll have 6 or 7 entries.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes 1, 2, or 3. And of course, we hope for the best, and we take the best. And so, as I said before, sometimes we do not give a prize. We prefer giving a prize.
Yeah. Does it have to have been written that year?
Yes. No, it just has to be submitted in that.
Can you submit more than once?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
The same book?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
No.
Just once. Once you didn't win it, you can't come back the next year.
Yes. If we did not choose it, then go on to write something else.
Okay, because sometimes it can be very close between number 1 and number 2.
I'm trying to think, but usually there's one that's head and shoulders.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like Tim Myers.
Tim Myers. We're going to talk to Tim. He got the most recent. Let's go back then, all right? 1976, the very first
76.
one. 76.
The first award was Betty Baldwin, writing about William Gilliland, who's one of the early people to live in this area. And the second one was Marge Lou Gage, and she wrote about the adversaries, Benedict Arnold and John Burgoyne. You can see already there's a variety of subjects. The 1978 was Wayne Miller of North Bangor, New York, a paper called The Seeds of Discontent, A History of the St. Regis Indian Reservation. In 1979, no award was given, but in 1980 there was a wonderful one that was then published in the Press Republican. We don't get this every time. Larry Gooley's story of the Altona blueberry business, and it was a great, very popular one.
We got to stop right there a second, and not stop, but just divert. Larry Gooley, of course, is from Champlain, New York, was living in Altona, I think, at the time, and talked with us about his book later on. Still available, by the way. It's called That Altona Blueberry Business, and just very, very good. And as a result of that and other things, we went up and did a story on the blueberry area, the $1 Million Dam up in there.
It's called History of the Flat Rock.
History of the Flat Rock.
Right, yes.
Okay,
yes,
right.
Yes. In 81 was Phyllis Wells' book about Francis Hall, Reverend Francis Hall, and the Sparrowstrom Presbyterian Church, which was a kind of break-off or a group that went in another direction. In 82, Mary Mackenzie from Lake Placid about North Alba's Thompson clan. In 83, Bill Culver and Corny Reinhardt on the poorhouse, and the poor master in rural New York. And that was an interesting one,
He was
too.
a teacher at Champlain Clinton Community for a while,
That's
right?
and also at PSUC.
Right.
M.L. Christie was the one who did the piece of fiction on the Journal of a Candidate at the old base in 1917, and that was a very interesting one. In 1985, Harriet Brune Davis from Westport, and she wrote about a relative of hers, an earlier relative called Elizabeth Monroe Fisher, and that was another one that I hate to show my favoritism, but I liked it. I remembered it very well, and I liked it. I must say, I'd like to say that the pleasure of having been on this committee all these years has been great,
now,
and I've enjoyed every minute.
The way you say you like it, you don't necessarily have to like, as long as it's good, for you to vote for it.
Right.
It may not be one of your favorite things.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
In 86, Virginia Burdick and her son Neil wrote about the old Quaker Union near Peru, and that was here. Here you see another
Right.
interest.
They had a display.
Local history.
They had a display here on that
Yes.
Quaker in I think
The
we
Quaker
did the
Union.
last time we
That's
came through
right.
here.
That's right. In 87, Betty LaPlante on the history of the Methodism in Clinton County.
Betty LaPlante was Betty Coakley LaPlante was a classmate of mine in Moores in 1943 and 1944, and asked us, Hometown Cable, to go to their 175th anniversary at the West Shazy Wesleyan Church, which we did. So we're familiar with another person who won the award.
In 88, Marcia Moss of Shazy, and I'm sure you know her, she edited a group of Civil War letters of William Trombley, and very nicely done, too, yes. In 89, Gregory Cook of Burke, New York, a paper called Towards a Definition of New York's North Country. Very good. I don't know whether you know him.
No.
In 1990, no award given. In 91, Jan Couture of Saranac on the controlling of the Saranac River, floods and freshlets.
You're from Saranac.
1830,
Yeah.
1947, and she did a very thorough job.
They could do another one from 47 to
Yes.
96.
Well, maybe
now.
she's working on that. One thing you should know is that we never know who has written the various papers that are sent to us. There is a cover letter.
Okay, you don't know who the writer is.
We
huh?
don't know who the writer is, so we are always the head of the association knows who the writers are, but the cover letter tells them that. But we do not know. We do it straight out without any knowledge of who's doing it. In '92, Margaret Spencer wrote a book called Big Guns on Lake Champlain, an essay. In '93, Lambert Nick Heiniger, who is part of his life is spent in Montreal. No Salties on Lake Champlain. In '94, there was no award given. In '95, it was Mary B. Hoteling from Saranac, an essay on a famous man, Edward Livingston Trudeau. And last year, Timothy Myers, and an essay called A History of Voices. Very nice, very poetic.
With that, we'll take a short break. You're watching Hometown Cable, and we're talking about the McMasters Award, and we're going to come back. We're going to be talking with Tim and talking with Margaret again, and then we'll give you information on how for you to make an application if you've written something and make yourself in line for the winning of the McMasters Award. Please stay with us. We've moved a little bit. Who is this? I forgot who this person is. There's not a sign, but that's who. He's
One of the Platt boys.
one of the Platt boys. He's not one of our group this morning, but we do have a new face in the name of Tim Myers. And hi, Tim.
Hi,
Where are you
how
from,
are you?
Tim?
I'm from Colorado originally, Colorado Springs, long way away.
You came way here to write a story so you can win the McMasters award?
It was, that big prize money drew me,
Right.
2,000 miles.
How much was the prize money?
$150.
Yes,
$150.
it's a modest prize, but we're happy to give it every year when we can.
I have to say, though, it may be a modest prize, relatively speaking, but it is definitely an incentive, and it shows how seriously this award is taken.
Yes.
I'm listening to the two of you as I'm standing off camera talk about all the people who have written and all the subjects they've written on. What a wealth of historical information available to people here in this area
And
because of the prize
And
because
it's
of what they've done
bottomless.
in the past.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
what can be done is bottomless.
Exactly.
There's so many directions to go.
Now, where can a person see some of these articles that have been written? Are they available in any one place?
Well, you know, the museum has and the Historical Association has a yearly publication called The Antiquarian. And since the Antiquarian began, which is about, I would say, 10, 11 years ago, the winning paper is published in The Antiquarian.
Okay.
And David Martin is now the editor of The Antiquarian.
Okay.
I was just looking over some copies of the Antiquarian here because I
So
haven't
that's
seen
one
it
of the
previously.
benefits.
But it's a beautiful little publication too, and I was very impressed.
Oh, it's
with the
very
layout and
very
the
impressive,
photographs.
yes.
Yeah.
But
Really
it's not
nice.
just the money, obviously. It's
No.
the honor of having it. What a great honor for you.
It was also, but this is a little bit comparable to what Margaret said about the pleasure that she's had on the committee reading these things. It was tremendously enjoyable to do the research, particularly for me as a new person in the area, to learn about the area and to write about it at the same time. My family and I have just fallen in love with Plattsburgh since we've come here, particularly coming from the West where history is a lot newer and a lot rawer, I suppose. And so it was just a great joy to be able to go through these
All right,
things.
let's
and
go back
express
to
some of
Colorado.
it.
Where were you from in Colorado?
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs.
Yes, my parents were not careless, but they were Catholic. I'm the oldest of 11 children.
11?
Yes.
So you know what she's talking about.
I'm,
with
glad,
that diet?
I'm glad you won.
Now, there's a college in Colorado Springs, isn't there?
Yes, I went to the Colorado College, they call it. I graduated from there.
What's the name of that?
The Colorado College
The
is the
Colorado
private school.
College is
Yeah,
called?
there's some others too. but
Okay.
That's the one I attended.
All right, now, what brought you to Plattsburgh?
Well, my wife and I, my wife is a professor at the college at SUNY, and we were in Bakersfield, California after she finished her degree at the University of Texas, Austin. And we weren't particularly fond of Bakersfield. There are a lot of things about California we love, but when she heard about this job, she came out, and I thought, I don't think I want to go to that frozen wasteland. I've never been more wrong in my life. She fell in love with the place during her interview trip, and she took the job here. We always say that she's the shark, I'm the remora. Where she goes, I kind of follow.
You're the mother.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
So do you,
I was just going to say that. What was I going to say? Never mind.
We'll come back
you-
to it.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
My husband always calls this Plattsburgh the banana belt because so often the snow
Yeah.
either drops in Dannemora or goes across the lake to Vermont.
true? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So do you stay home with the children? What are you doing?
Well, actually, our youngest is 5, and I stayed home with her. I also I teach 3 classes at the college, writing courses for teachers. But what I am trying to become is a full-time writer. I mean, that's my job. My youngest is now in kindergarten, so there's more time to.
Well, now you say youngest. How many are there altogether?
I have 2 older boys, 17 and 15 at PHS.
So you either have 8 or 9 more to go to match or beat your parents. Which is it going to be?
I decided to drop out of that race a
You
long
did?
time ago.
No race.
Did you or your wife decide that?
Oh, well, we both.
You both
feel very
decided on
strongly
that.
about it, yeah.
Okay, Tim, you decided, you've written before you came to Plattsburgh, probably,
Yes,
other things,
yes,
right?
yes.
What type of things do you usually
Well,
write?
I have a children's picture book out. In fact, tonight I'm going to be telling stories over at Imagine That down on Bridge Street, the new toy
yeah.
store, Amy
Oh, yeah.
Valentine's.
Uh-huh.
And my picture book is available there. That sounded like a plug very much.
It's
didn't
okay
it?
with us.
Okay,
You
good
can do
deal.
that.
It's even a backwards plug to Tundra Books, which published mainly children's books.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish Margaret was still an editor because I'd be knocking her door down. I write children's manuscripts and I write for adults. I published a number of pieces of poetry and nonfiction and fiction, that kind
All
of
right,
thing.
let me ask you a question completely off base here,
Sure.
but suppose there was somebody in let's say in Ellenburg. They wanted to write a story on Ellenburg, but they don't know how, and there's nobody there that feels they could do it, although they have. I don't want to.
Right, right.
Would you be available to do something for them if they provided you with the information?
You know, I couldn't because the schedule with a 5-year-old, 2 kids
Oh,
in high
so you-
school, 3
okay.
courses, and trying to make a go of this, I couldn't do that. But there certainly are, plenty of courses.
But we encourage people
Oh,
from
Okay.
Ellenburg and everywhere else
Yeah.
to look into their history.
They already
And-
have. There's 2 books on Ellenburg. One is written by the Catholic Daughters up there, the group. They did an excellent job. They've got a great purple cover. It's a great book. We spent 3 hours with those ladies talking about their books and great pictures. And there's another one issued that doesn't have a lot of pictures that I recently acquired. It's more of a paper than it was a book, I think. But I was able to pick that up. We'll take another short break. We're having trouble here with lights, and we're getting a lot of shadows on a lot of people, and we don't want that because
Yes.
these people should be in front of the shadow, not behind it. Okay, so we've moved into a much better light now. They're right there where they can be seen the way they should. Let's talk a little bit about the McMasters and how you got involved and when you didn't know him at the time. You didn't know him until after he won.
Yes,
Of
right,
course, you didn't
exactly.
exactly.
Until he called me the other
Okay.
day on the
That's right.
telephone,
All right, then.
really.
All right. How did you know that you didn't write it for the McMasters Award?
I actually did write.
You did
the
write it for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw a very small notice in the newspaper when I first came here, and I thought, historical writing, gosh, I love history, but I'm not a historian. I can't do historical writing. And the next year I saw it, and I thought, well, why don't I try to do something about this? And as I
You
was
do not have to be a historical writer.
right. And in fact, that my piece, I was also very interested to hear you talk about people turning in the fiction piece about the Plattsburgh idea in World War I. I love the way this contest is set up with that kind of latitude, because my piece is researched, and I tried to make, in fact, I tried very hard to make it historically accurate, but it is a more literary essay, I suppose in some ways more literary than a historical, or at least kind of balanced. So it's a good point to make for people who might be
Right.
considering writing it. But as I was going to say, I was on the way downstairs with a load of laundry. I was thinking about what to write about. I certainly felt inspired by the whole area. And the word voices, I thought, voices out of history, and that's what led me to write it. That was my little eureka moment.
It was
Okay.
rather poetic. It was literary as well as historical. And,
How long was it? How big of a?
It's about, I guess, 20 pages, something like that.
Uh-huh.
I surpassed the 3,000. Was a little worried about going at the other end, going too far. But of course, that's another good thing about the contest.
well, some of
It's
them
wide
run
open.
much longer than that,
Yeah.
40 or 50 pages, yes.
Now, did you publish this or?
It's going to come out in the antiquarian, and once it
Okay,
does,
okay.
I'll
Once
probably
it's in
send
the
it
antiquarian,
elsewhere.
then you can publish it yourself. Can he publish it afterward in a form of a little booklet?
We have, the essay belongs to the association. I'm sure that arrangements can be made.
Okay.
Right.
For any further publication or quoting from and so on and so forth.
Because certainly a writer is much like Calvin and I. It's one thing to do it, but you want someone to see
Oh,
it
definitely.
and someone to say, "Gosh, that was nice. I enjoyed it."
Well-
You like to hear that, don't you?
Well, definitely. Plus, and I mean, I don't mean to sound like I'm totally unselfish here, but there is a great feeling. I would feel very gratified to feel that, for example, if this piece were eventually, and I've talked to David about this, picked up, I can keep my fingers crossed, by a New York Historical Association publication or something, that people in the state of New York would be finding much more out about a place that is not, people downstate don't know much about Plattsburgh, has been our experience, and they should.
So
that would
you
be
wrote
nice.
this last year,
Yes, last year.
all right?
about this time.
And then you awarded it last April, sometime, March or
Yes.
April? And isn't the antiquarian,
April meeting of the Clinton County Historical Association.
isn't the antiquarian come out in the fall?
Antiquarian comes out in the fall.
And you said it wasn't in the antiquarian
No,
yet?
I haven't seen it.
So it'll
I
be
don't
in the
know when it-
following years?
Yes, it'll
Okay.
be there.
It'll be
yeah.
there this year,
Right,
in this fall that we get, okay.
I think that.
We think, because I don't remember seeing it, and I don't always read it in full. I always glance through my antiquarian, and it's great. I've got a library of those now,
Oh,
too.
it sounds fascinating.
It is, this is a great place, people out there, if you have not been and are not a member of the Clinton County Historical Association, you don't know what you're missing. There's history here. There is so much history. And this young lady who has come in here from Ohio, as I remember, let's just meet her just a second. Don't worry, we're going to get you in the light here, Jane. Come on over here in between. And
Okay. Hi, Bob.
hi there. Her name is, you're going to have to step back a little, make sure you get in those lights.
Okay.
Okay. Her name is spelled R-U-P-P, and as much as I want to say Rupp many times, it's Roop.
Well, that's what I grew up with.
Okay, all right.
I won't argue if
All
you
right,
pronounce
so
it otherwise.
you had a great article in the paper recently. Her picture was in, and how many members do you have in the association?
Somewhere between 400 and 450. It varies over time.
All right.
Of course, we're always happy to have more.
You should have 4,000 or 5,000, what you should have in this county. There's got to be people interested, and they just don't take the time to see how they can become a member, obviously. Very simple,
It's
isn't
very
it?
simple. If someone is interested in joining the organization, if they give us a call, our number is 561-0340. We'll be happy to send them the information. They can drop in. It's just a simple matter of filling out your name and address on a form. The standard rate is $20, but there are higher levels of membership as well.
Okay.
And you'll be glad to send them a brochure about the McMasters,
Absolutely.
the McMasters Prize as well, won't you?
Oh, of course, of course. Anyone who's interested in participating in that will be happy to send the information.
You would be then become a supporting member of this great organization, and of course, the more people they have, the more they can do, and the more that is here for other people. And not only the CCHA, as it's called, Clinton County Historical Association, but there's another one called Hometown Cable. You can become a member too. Become a patron of Hometown Cable. Send $12, $15 or more once a year, twice a year, and say, hey, I like what you're doing on Hometown Cable. Here's my donation, and keep doing whatever you're doing. Calvin works very hard. We'll be right back. Tim, it's always interesting for me anyway to ask, where were you and what were you doing when you were notified that you were the winner of the McMasters Award?
Actually, I just got a phone call, and it was, I believe, it might have been a letter, might have been a phone call, I don't remember, but I remember it was very anticlimactic at the time because I believe, and I don't remember if it was David or not, but he announced it in a way that talked about the piece and then finally said that I'd won, and I couldn't tell if I had won,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure, and I didn't know if it was a friendly critique of the paper and that kind of thing. But then, of course, it got to be more of a big deal. So, yeah, I was very, very gratified.
Very proud too.
Oh, yes,
You
definitely.
tell your mom and dad right away?
Well, actually, the situation was funny in that the Press Republican decided to run the story, and it ended up on the front page with a huge picture, which, you know, I mean, I certainly wasn't going to say no to that, but I obviously sent that home, and I hope it was on my mother's
Several
refrigerator.
copies of the Press
Yeah,
Republican.
definitely. And my little girl was in the picture. The essay is about how I think about the history of Plattsburgh while standing at the monument near my house, the Champlain Monument, while my little girl plays. So it was a nice family thing, you know, and a good picture.
Okay. There's a lot of Myers besides you in the Plattsburgh area.
We have found this to be true. I've been quite amazed. You know,
Any
and,
relatives?
None that I know of. I haven't been any kind of a genealogical sleuth or anything, so I don't know. But we're a very Irish family, a lot of German mixed in too. And obviously there's a great deal of the Irish here, as Jane will tell you. So I'm wondering if there are some connections. In fact, people here even know how to spell the name correctly, which interests
Spell it for us.
M-Y-E-R-S.
Same
yeah,
way.
yeah.
The big, of course, F.W. Myers, the broker company and brokerage in Rouse's Point, was originally the Myers. Now it was into the Casey family. And then the M.P. Myers, big business here across from the railroad station in Plattsburgh for many years. And other Myers, a lot of Myers in the Saranac, Cadyville area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you first meet young Tim here?
He called me on the telephone the other day, and we had a conversation.
Oh, that was the first time?
I had never met him because I missed that meeting in which in which the prize was announced. So I hadn't met him then.
And I called to talk to her about children's books. It had nothing to do with the
In my
McMasters
association
books,
with
yeah.
Tundra,
All right,
yes.
tell us about the new book that you're working with now. You say you're
Well,
working with children?
I just finished a book for adults called What Women Have Always Known and Then Some, A Man's Guide to Being Home with Kids.
That's the title?
That's the title. It's long. It's one of those broken down
Yes.
two-tier titles. But naturally, since I stayed home with my daughter and a short time with my sons, I see that as a very important movement in the United States, and I'm all for it. And a lot of men who are not full-time dads like I was are spending a lot of time at home with their children as patterns change in our society. So that is currently out, and I'm hoping something will come of it. And I'm doing about 10 other things at the moment.
Is this book available?
No, I mean, I've just sent it out to an agent.
Oh, just sending it out now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's available. If somebody wants to pick it up and publish it, I won't hold them back.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever published any?
I haven't published a full-length book as such. I mentioned the children's book before. I've published a lot of individual pieces, but not a full-length book. This was the first real big book I've
Who
written.
published your children's book?
It's a little Hawaiian publisher called Best Press, and it's doing well in Hawaii.
Oh, good.
It's about Hawaiian fish. Yeah.
Okay.
Hawaiian fish. All right. All right. Now let's get back to the McMasters in general. You have some rules there, and why don't you read what you have?
Well, this is the pamphlet that we send out, and anyone can get one from the museum here, or I'd be glad to send one to them, or whatever way that, and they are distributed around the counties, the various counties, in the libraries and in the classrooms, and the people who teach history will have them. And but always you can get this information at the museum.
Okay. This has to be Tim.
I just want to throw one thing in. A very important point. I think I've talked about how wonderful it is that this whole contest is set up in such a broad way. A number of children have entered, or haven't they entered through their teachers, like in classroom settings, or I don't know the numbers, but I know that's a possibility.
I think only once that
Only
I
once.
remember
Okay,
that
okay.
that happened. Yes.
So in other words, there are possibilities
There
even
are all
in that
kinds of
direction.
possibilities.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Okay. And when is the closing date on this?
Closing date is February 1st,
Okay.
1997.
Okay.
And the prize will be announced in the first Monday of April, which is the time that the association meets.
Okay, so when we say February, don't think February. Last day of January. So, you think of February, you got a lot of time in February. You don't have a lot of time in February. You got all of January, and then you got the one day in February. That's it. So tell us a little bit then about some of your rules, or et cetera.
Well, it may be as well a piece of historical fiction, and all manuscripts become the property of the Clinton County Historical Association, which reserves the right of first publication in whole or in part. Authors should, this is important too, authors should keep copies of their essays because the association can neither return manuscripts nor provide copies.
Okay.
So, and that's a good idea anyhow, that you should have 2 or 3 copies of your manuscript, and then you don't lose it in the mail, you don't, something like that.
Always keep copies. I keep copies of all my personal letters. I write. Every letter I write, I have a copy in my file.
You know, Richard Nixon did something like that.
Yes, and he got in trouble with it.
That's right.
I got in trouble one time for not keeping a copy, and someone said what I had written. He wouldn't tell me exactly, and I never could find out what I wrote. And I was embarrassed about something I could not remember, and I said it will never happen again. So I keep copies now.
That makes sense.
I'd like to add that the manuscript should not, on the manuscript itself, have the identity of the person who wrote it, but it should have a cover letter so that the people who read the essays do not know who is there to read, who is reading them, who is writing them. We are anonymous in that respect, and this cover sheet should have the author's name, address, and telephone number, and should come with the manuscript. And the manuscript can be delivered or posted to the Historical Association, 48 Court Street, Plattsburgh, New York, or it can be brought in person to Janet Rupp, whom we've just met, and she'll be glad to see finally that the readers get copies.
Okay. You've been listening to a discussion about the McMasters Award. You know where it came from. You've met, I want to say it's wrong, but it's Margaret Engelhart.
That's right.
And Tim Myers, the latest award winner of 1996 to 1997 award next spring. It's been a pleasure for Hometown Cable to be here and bring you this information. And again, we thank Dave Martin and anyone out there that has something they think we should cover. At least bring it to our attention. We're glad to give you credit. I remember many years ago, several years ago, Orville Trombley said, you ought to get up to Rogers Sawmill. And we put it off for a while, and he said, you better get up to Rogers Sawmill. Well, we went to Rogers Sawmill, and well, what a great person we met there, and what a great show we had. And we appreciate your comments. We appreciate, good or bad, that we don't want you to complain, but we're interested in constructive criticism. We'll see you next Sunday. I guess we're going to be closing off this segment. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to know that you enjoyed it. You haven't been hurt either. I can see you've been smiling all the way through.
It has been a very pleasant experience.
Well, thank you very much. Hometown Cable. My name is Bob Venn. Calvin Castine has the camera. Our program is called What's Going On Here? And you just found out what did. I've told you before, just because I say goodbye does not mean I'm finished. We're going to continue right on now. We're going into the Irish exhibit, a brand new exhibit at the, I want to say museum. Is it okay to call it museum?
Yes, it's
the museum of the Clinton
Yes,
County Historical Society.
That's correct.
Right. Tell us what brought about this Irish display.
Robert Fitzgerald of Rouse's Point was one of the strong proponents of this exhibit early on, before I came on board here, as a matter of fact. The organization committed to creating an exhibit in 1996, and so when I came on board in January, I was told this is what we need to do this year. And I said, fine, sounds interesting, let's go for it. And Bob has been a wonderful source of contacts and information. So it's been a very good partnership, and I want to make sure that he gets credit for that. We worked very hard to try to let people know that if they would be willing to contribute some of their family history, we would be happy to use part of that in some fashion to tell the story of Irish immigration into Clinton County. We have also worked with the Irish American Heritage Museum, whose offices are in Albany, and their galleries are in East Durham, and they have loaned us some materials for the exhibit, as well as a number of local residents.
Okay, when is this going to be here? It's on here now until when?
Until April 30th of 1997.
Okay. While we're here, let's just mention a little bit about Bob Fitzgerald. I'll tell you what I know about Bob Fitzgerald. He came up to work with me and others at the U.S. Customs back in the, I would say, late 60s. And he came up from Florida, originally had been in New York. His father was a customs officer. He was an import specialist like myself. And he retired, I think, just before I did. I retired in '88. He's a very, very strong Irishman and union organizer. And the other thing is he's very dedicated to customs. This is his second idea here at the museum. One of our very first shows we did when we came to the Historical Society was one on the 200th anniversary of United States Customs. And that was put together by Bob Fitzgerald up in the other building at the City Hall. And then we went on from there to talk with Helen Allen about the general association at that time. And this is about our 5th trip, I think, to the Clinton County. Several reasons. Number one, I'm very interested in this thing and this association. And if you're not a member,